Hello, everyone. Today we are joined by Sarah Siddiqui. Sarah is a member of the executive team of the Citizens Foundation. The Citizens Foundation is a professionally managed nonprofit organization set up in the 1995 by a group of citizens who wanted to bring about positive social change through education. 25 years later, the Citizens Foundation is now one of Pakistan's leading organizations in the field of education. Originally from Pakistan herself, Sarah moved to Dubai in 2004. She joined the Citizen Foundation UAE chapter in 2008 and has served in various capacities since then. In her role as CEO from 2016 to 18, she helped grow the chapter to provide access to quality education to as many children in Pakistan as possible. Her prime focus is on developing the business, raising awareness, and managing relationships. Sarah graduated from the Institute of Business Administration in Karachi with an MBA concentrating in marketing. Sarah, thank you for joining us today.
Very happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. So, Sarah, tell us a little bit about your journey, about how you started out and how you ended up in an inspirational place such as the Citizen Foundation.
So, as you mentioned, I'm from Pakistan and born and brought up in Karachi. I did my MBA from the Institute of Business Administration in Karachi with a major in marketing.
Right.
IBA is the oldest management institute and one of the most respected ones in Pakistan at the moment. So, very proud to be an alma mater. After I graduated, I joined ICI Pakistan Limited in their management trainee program. And I worked primarily in their life sciences and paints divisions, mostly in the supply chain and sales roles. My last role was as the regional sales manager for their Glidden paints. Then in 2004, my husband got a job offer from UAE, and we decided to pack up and seize the opportunity. When we moved here, I joined Citibank for a year. I worked in the credit policy department, but I very quickly realized that this is not something I want to pursue in the longer run. It was at that time that I was introduced to the folks at Citizen Foundation UAE, and I liked the cause, and I thought this is something that I would probably enjoy. I joined them in 2008 as a business development manager and have been associated with them since then. In 2016, I took on the role of a CEO. And my responsibility was not just to meet the fundraising objectives, working with the local organizations like Dubai Cares to build schools and raise support to run the existing schools, but it was also to build brand awareness and sustainability within the UAE community, because it's been 25 years and we are hoping to have another 25 years, inshallah. So it is critical in these times that your brand awareness should be key. So that's in a nutshell what I do, and this is where I am.
The Citizens Foundation does such incredible work. I mean, you have, 1,600 schools across Pakistan, which cater to over 266,000 children that are educated. 100% of the faculty is female. I mean, tell us a little bit more about this initiative.
So TCF primarily builds and runs primary and secondary schools. We cater to urban slums and rural areas across Pakistan. Our schools are from kindergarten up to grade 10, which is the board equivalent of GCSEs here. So it's called matriculation. And our schools are in 64 districts across Pakistan. So they're in all 4 provinces and even in the Azad Jammu and Kashmir area. We also established a TCF college as a pilot project in Karachi, which is geared towards grades 11 and 12. And the idea behind that was that once the children graduate from the TCF system, they should be ready to jump into the undergrad programs, or if they want to start a business, but they're older, they're more mature, and we feel they're better equipped to venture out into the world. If the pilot is successful, inshallah, the plan is to roll out across the network and extend all our secondary schools up to grade 12. In addition to that, we've partnered with different organizations to provide community development initiatives like clean drinking water for the communities, adult literacy program called Agahi for the women and the younger girls who have not had an opportunity to go to school. And that provides them with basic functional literacy. So at the end of that program, they are able to say, read a newspaper, they are able to read and write their name, they're able to do basic maths calculations, basic life skills that they didn't have before.
Right.
And with just a few weeks of training, it completely changes their lives. So the idea is not just to benefit the children, but to enhance the whole community where the school operates. In addition, we run mentorship programs called Ripper, which in Urdu means a mentor, for our grade 8 and 9 students. And we offer career counseling
Okay.
for the grade 10 students. That's the final batch just before they graduate. And we don't just stop
Okay.
there. We have a dedicated alumni department so that once the students graduate from the TCF system, and if they wish to pursue higher education or vocational training or whatever they want to do in life, we are able to support them in regards to admissions and finding sponsors to fund their fees.
Yeah.
We are very proud. Since 1995, we've had more than 41,000 metric graduates from our schools. And the last board exams that we had a 93% pass rate and 58% scored A and
Wow.
A1 grade. So that's something that's a big achievement when you compare it to the national averages. 88% of the TCF graduates in a survey we did in 2017 actually chose to pursue higher education, so they moved on to intermediate education. And this is as opposed to a 30% national average. So when you compare with the national averages, it's a phenomenal achievement. And 71% are
Great.
actually employed or running their own small enterprises. So the children want to study, they want to succeed, they want to make a success of themselves and to change the lives for their families. And we are just there to support them as much as we can. Um, some of our
Yeah.
alumni after graduation have actually also managed to gain admission into some of the top tier universities in Pakistan, including my alma mater,
Yeah.
IBA, which is something that I'm extremely proud of because it's tough to get into IB, and the fact that they've made it speaks volumes about them. And actually, a few have also gone abroad on scholarships. Two of our kids have studied in the United World Colleges, which was something that nobody could fathom earlier on. But Alhamdulillah, through their
Yeah.
efforts and support from our teams, we have managed to, open opportunities for them that they probably never thought would ever be available to them.
Talk about touching people's lives and changing them, having an impact, right? I mean, it doesn't really get more fundamental than
Absolutely.
this. You Oh, it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. So help us understand something, right? I mean, the work you're doing is tremendous, and I think it's absolutely changing the social fabric. But it is indeed changing the social fabric, which means you have to work within the construct of a very conservative community, of perhaps very conservative traditions almost that may or may not be open to this change and this new way of thinking. Is that something that you have come across? And if so, how have you handled
Yes,
it?
absolutely. Our society as a whole is conservative, but especially when you reach out to the lower strata of this community, you find that there is a lot of resistance to teaching their daughters. And focus is the mindset still is that the boys are the breadwinners of the family and the girls are just meant to get married and start their own families. They're not meant to actually go out and work and support the family. So, hence, no need to educate them. So, whenever we open a school in any new area, our principal and the area manager they make an active effort to visit the community. They speak to the parents. They try to explain and emphasize the importance of educating not just the boys but the girls. When you think about it, an educated boy, yes, can bring in money, but an educated girl is also going to be molding the entire next generation. And if she is not educated, she
Absolutely.
will not be able to provide or impart the same values that would benefit them in the long run. So a woman changes the
Yeah.
entire family. When you look at it that way, it should be the other way around. Girls
Yeah.
should be given priority, but unfortunately, that's not what happens. What we also did was that since the inception, the founding directors decided that we would hire only female faculty members. And this was to provide a level of comfort to the parents. They would be comfortable in sending their girls to school, knowing that the principal and all the teachers are females. And also the non-staff members like the maids, the security guard, the van driver, we try to hire them from within the community. So the parents have a familiar face on campus, and that just adds to
Right.
the comfort. So using all these strategies, we've tried our level best to change the mindset and ensure that the girls are given an equal opportunity to study in our schools. And alhamdulillah, almost 50% of our student body right now is girls. So it's working and something that we're really proud
Wonderful.
of.
Wonderful. That's fantastic. You raised a couple of very important points there, right? I mean, you said that the faculty is 100% women, but the student body is 50-50 between boys and girls. How do you make sure that you maintain that balance? Because indeed, it is a balance. It is changing the entire societal mindset, because if you don't, you leave one side behind, then it doesn't work. How do you make sure that you strike that balance and that you provide equal opportunities for both young boys and girls?
So most of our schools are co-education, with the exception of a few areas where the law dictates otherwise, where you need to separate the boys and girls, mostly in the higher classes. We aim to provide equal opportunities for boys and girls. And as I said, the first step is for the principal and the area manager to speak to the parents, educate them about the fact that it is in this day and age, there's no difference between a boy and a girl. And the girls are as capable of becoming breadwinners for the family in the future as the boys. So that's step one. We've also included several innovations within the program itself. So we build our schools in the heart of the communities. So they are within walking distance of the communities. The girls and boys can easily walk to school. Parents have that feeling of comfort that it's just a stone's throw away from their houses. And also, as I mentioned, we only hire female faculty, so that provides that additional level of comfort. So using all of these strategies, we have managed to, break through the barrier and convince the parents to send girls and boys to school.
Very nice. Now, in addition to the societal change that you're bringing by educating young boys and young girls, and perhaps even some of the older men, women, that you're also playing another very important role, an economic role, which is you are the largest employer for women outside the government in the country. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I don't think this was a conscious strategy to become the largest employer of women. We started off with 5 schools in 1995, but Alhamdulillah, the program took off, and today we have a network of over 1,600 schools. As a result of our policy to hire only females, we've got more than 12,500 female faculty members, and as a whole in the organization, we are currently employing 15,000 women. Which, as a result, makes us the largest employer of women in the private sector in Pakistan. And the thing that I am most proud about is that not just are we offering these employment opportunities to women in general, but to some of our students. So the girls that have graduated from our system are now coming back to teach in the very same schools. So it's an opportunity for them to give back to their community while at the same time earning money for their families. So this is something that's been a welcome change, something that has, in the last couple of years, you're seeing more and more girls come in. And that's, adding to the fact that we are the largest private employer of women in Pakistan in the private sector.
Very nice. Well, congratulations on that. That is aspirational.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Now, unfortunately, you, like others, have not been isolated from the impact of the pandemic over the last year. We've all had to deal with it. We've all had to evolve and adapt the way we work, the way we operate. How have you changed the way you're educating some of the younger men and women, boys and girls? And how are you making sure that you keep them engaged and, frankly, keep them going? Particularly given what you said, that perhaps some of these are not areas where technology and connectivity is as high as one would, as it is in some other parts of the world.
Absolutely. So when the pandemic hit us in March, and you could see there was no end in sight, the management team at DCF sat down and developed a four-pronged approach to the crisis. The first one was to sustain,
Right.
which means that we decided to retain all our faculty members despite financial constraints on our end, because obviously everybody was impacted by the pandemic. But the idea was that when and if,
Right.
inshallah, the children come back to school, they should have the teachers and principals behind their back and ready and equipped with the right resources
Right.
to ease them back into the
Mm-hmm.
school routine. The second thing that we did, which
Mm-hmm.
was a little bit of a divergence from our core program, is that a lot of the communities that we operate in were severely impacted by the crisis. So in April 2020, TCF
Okay.
provided cash-based relief to some of the families of our students who were severely impacted by the crisis. It was a huge effort that involved not just the faculty and staff members at schools, but also the alumni. They all pitched in, they all helped to identify families within their communities that were in dire need of support. And we halted everything and we decided it's important that the family sustains through this pandemic so that in the long run they're kept
Right.
afloat and the children are able to come back to school. So that was one. We also provided personal protective equipment to the frontline workers because
Mm-hmm.
initially, obviously, it took time for the required amount of stock to be brought in from outside. But TCF joined hands with a lot of other organizations that were trying their best to source that PPE for the frontline workers. So we pitched in there as well.
Brilliant.
The second step, and more importantly, to answer your question of how we engage the children at this time. So, as per government directives, the schools were shut down in March 2020. But CF worked
Mm-hmm.
diligently to develop a distance learning program to engage the children, and they did three things. They partnered
Okay.
with the federal government to start an
Mm-hmm.
edutainment program on television called Ilm Ka Angan,
Okay.
which translates to the learning courtyard. So, what we did was that we developed a 45-minute episode that would air every Sunday. And that included a host of things to
Mm.
educate and engage and interest the younger audience. So they had an exercise segment, they had a storytelling segment, and the lady reading the story, she's a very well known television artist. She reads beautifully. There were illustrations to support the story, really, really fun, colorful kind of a production.
Wonderful.
And then they would include theme based videos, there would be small lessons of English and maths, but everything was revolving around a theme, so everything was interlinked. And it worked really well. You would be amazed. We used to have 8 million viewers logging in every Sunday. It was being aired across 4 channels. The videos used to be available on YouTube. And we also started asking the children to draw things, whatever they liked about the program, and send in
Right.
their productions. And we would receive 4,000 entries every week. So the children loved it, the families loved it. It kept them engaged. It kept them,
Wonderful.
mentally and physically. They were able to exercise their mind and body. So yeah, that was one. But as you said, Pakistan is a poor country, and a lot of these areas where we operate, people don't have access to. A lot of them don't even have electricity. Most of them don't have television screens. Some don't even have mobiles. So we also developed a magazine by the same name, Ilm Ka Angan, and started printing and distributing those magazines through our schools. And those magazines, we
Okay.
had a separate edition for primary students and for secondary students. And it was all revolved around play based and activity based learning. So there were stories and comic strips. There were exercises like, puzzles and crosswords and mysteries.
Mm.
And they could actually do those exercises and send it back to their teachers via SMS or through drop off points. So the teachers would be checking their work and making sure that the children were working and keeping on track and were not just idling at home. That also worked really well. That was a fortnightly magazine. We are actually still continuing to print it. And we printed over 148,000 copies in Urdu and Sindh that were distributed every fortnight. And also, 21 other low cost schools adopted that magazine and used it to support the students within their schools as well. So it wasn't just about the TCF network. We were happy to share it with anyone who could benefit from it. The third thing that we did was that we started these tutor groups within homes and within common community spaces. So there would be one tutor to 5 learners. And the idea was, again, to support the children, especially the senior children who were going to eventually sit for their board examinations. We didn't want them to lose out on this time. So those tutor groups also helped them to keep on track with regards to their studies. So that was the engagement aspect. Then the third thing was reopening the schools. Thankfully, January 2021, the government said that it would be a staggered opening, but we could start reopening the schools. And as the teachers and the principals started preparing for the reopening, they reached out to each parent directly to ensure that maximum number of children come back to school, because there was this fear that some children might not return to school because the parents were struggling financially and they would rather the child go and do something like work with the parent, or do something small jobs to bring in extra income than go to school, because for them it was a matter of survival. But the principals put in their level best to make sure that as many children as possible would return to school. And schools are just now getting in the numbers, and hopefully, inshallah, we should be back on track very soon. The last but the most important thing was to support not just the faculty and the children, because a pandemic of this kind, a crisis, I haven't seen something like this in my lifetime, and I'm sure most of the people out there haven't seen it either. So the idea was to support their mental and physical well-being as well. And to do that, what we did was we now have dedicated sessions for the students, and we have regular staff circles within the regular schedule that has been incorporated by our education team to support them and foster resilience within them.
Very nice. Very nice. Look, it sounds fantastic, and really hats off to you and the team for doing such wonderful work. Sarah, banker turned educator, what advice would you like to give to some of the younger women and men that are just starting out in their careers?
So, in my experience, I've learned that you should follow your heart. It is very important to choose a career that interests you, that brings you happiness and satisfaction at the end of the day. Because if the work that you do does not inspire you, does not make you want to jump out of bed every morning, trust me, you won't be able to sustain it in the long run. And don't choose a career based on what people around you think you should be doing or what everybody else is doing. It doesn't matter. You know your core strengths, you know what you are capable of and what you would want to do that would make you happy as an individual and give you that satisfaction at the end of the day. So base your decision on what your heart says and don't think too much. Give it your 100%. Work as hard as you can, and everything else will follow.
Wonderful words. Thank you for your time, Sarah. Appreciate it. It's been wonderful having you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a lovely experience and a pleasure meeting you.